All right, morality, part 2. Okay, revision. What is morality? Morality is about how we live our life, right? It is about our conduct and behavior. So-Hun? Okay, to live in an upright way in society, supporting, protecting, and promoting a peaceful and virtuous coexistence. To develop and enhance the quality and potential of the mind, which supports living a virtuous life and is conducive for applying wisdom in the most optimal way. Okay. Morality is a skillful behavior, right? For verbal and physical action, while concentration is skillful behavior with respect to the mind. To discern and understand things according to the truth, to penetrate the nature of conditioned phenomena so that one lives and acts with wisdom. What is wisdom? Panya, right? Panya is essential at the beginning of the path as well. This will support the practice throughout the path, which culminates in insight wisdom. Insight wisdom means realization. It's not about intellectual knowledge. You realize it, you see it for yourself. You see the mind, you know how the mind works. You see how the mind runs between the sense doors. You see the 5 aggregates. Okay, let me just show you an analogy. So morality is the clearing of the garbage on the lake of our mind. So the garbage represents the defilements that arise from the 3 roots of evils. Do you all still remember that? Greed, hatred, and delusion. Toba, dosa, moha. And concentration is the stealing of this lake of our mind. The mind steals. Right? It trains the mind to be quieter and quieter. And wisdom is looking into the depths of this lake of our mind to witness the reality of mind and matter. Now, not possible without clarity of mind. You can't see the mind, you just look at thoughts. So you can see clearly from here, right? Our training starts with morality. Okay. Is Sok-Hun there to help me read?
Yep.
Okay. Here goes.
The training in morality is the foundation. It involves firstly the intelligent adoption of standards of conduct towards the external world and particularly other human beings. And then learning how to be mindful of them in daily life and bring them to bear on our behavior. It is at this level of training that we see the central role of self-discipline.
This self-discipline helps us to control what? Control the mind. Because we develop what we call the mind muscles when we exercise self-restraint. The stronger the mind muscles, the more control we have over our verbal and physical behavior. We also develop mind muscles, right, during meditation, when we hold our attention to a meditation object. You can see the threefold discipline here, right? First, you have this system of ethics. It's a level of morality that is based on intellectual wisdom, which gives a person the knowledge of what works and what doesn't work. Then you have virtuous action. The sila represents what? Moral conduct. And then we have the inner virtue developed through the mental cultivation that is predominantly concentration. All these 3 together work and develop insight wisdom, that realization through direct experience, not through intellectual knowledge. From here, we can see 2 things. Number 1, morality is a prerequisite in Dharma training. Number 2, the threefold training of wisdom, morality, and concentration overlap one another to a great extent. You can't draw a distinct line to separate them. Okay, many people who start the Dharma training will dive straight away into Vipassana practice and then wonder, hey, hi, how come like that? How come my practice is not bearing fruit? Well, it may be due to the lack of calmness and clarity of mind, which means not enough samatha practice. Samatha is what we have been doing with you, all of you, week after week. All right, mind on one meditation object and to still the mind. All right, so the mind gets quieter and quieter and quieter. All right, another likely reason is the lack of a strong foundation in morality. Without that, we cannot progress in our spiritual life. Then in that case, how did a serial killer like Angulimala end up becoming an arahant? If virtue is essential, he obviously shouldn't be able to progress on the path, right? Since he killed so many people. What happened? Firstly, Angulimala repented. He made a choice to turn over a new leaf. He threw away all his weapons and he asked to join the Sangha. In the Buddha's own words, he became celibate, virtuous, of good character. So, brothers and sisters, what is the moral of the story? Three things you can learn from it. Number one, even for those who have done very, very bad and unwholesome deeds in this life, enlightenment is still possible. Number two, for enlightenment to be possible, there must be a change in moral attitude and behavior. And of course, number three, don't be a serial killer because we do not have a Buddha around to help us. Sokhun?
Wanting great insights without a grounding in moral action is like putting tremendous effort into rowing across a river without untying the boat from the dock.
Not committing to the basic foundation of morality means you are skipping an essential section of our spiritual development. If morality is not important, it wouldn't be on the Noble Eightfold Path in the first place, right? Okay, so we move on. We covered number three. Now we move on to number four. Now, every religion teaches morality. But in Buddhism, the moral principles and the rules which the Buddha came up with is based on the law of cause and effect, which is karma. Karma means mental, verbal, and physical action. Many people also use the term karma to refer to the results of action. The Buddha calls it old karma. This old karma is actually vipaka, which can come into fruition in this life or in subsequent lives. Vipaka also determines where we are reborn within the 31 realms of existence. If we keep breaking moral precepts, we will accumulate a lot of unwholesome karma that tends towards unfavorable rebirths. Sokhun?
Unskillful actions, repeatedly pursued, developed, and cultivated, is conducive to hell, to the animal realm, and to the sphere of afflicted spirits.
Okay. Now you see these are the lower realms. Although the Buddha usually refers only to these three realms as unfavorable, the Asura realm, the number 4, is also considered unfavorable. It's still lower than the human realm. And for one reborn as a human being, killing and violence, that means you always engage in violence, at the minimum conduces to short lifespan, loss of wealth, enmity and rivalry, false accusations, divided from one's friends, disagreeable sounds, others distrusting one's words, madness and loss of intelligence. Okay. Sokhun, can you please read the next slide?
Kills living beings, murderers, bloody-handed, given to blows and violence, merciless to living beings. This is short-lived action. Injures beings with hand, stick, knife, etc. is sickly. Angry and irritable when criticized a little is offended, angry, hostile and resentful, displays anger, hate and bitterness. That's ugly. Envies, resents and begrudges the gains, honor, respect, reverence, salutations, and veneration received by others, uninfluential. Does not give food, drink, clothing, etc. to recluses and Brahmins, poor. Obstinate and arrogant. Does not honor, respect, revere, and venerate one who should be honored, respected, revered, and venerated, low-born. Does not seek knowledge in order to cultivate a wholesome, blameless life leading to welfare and happiness, lacks wisdom.
So when you don't switch off, you don't mute yourself, so it's faster when you come on. Now, can you girls, if you have young girls here, if you want your next life to be beautiful, please don't always get angry, okay? So when?
But since he has killed living beings, taken what is not given, misconducts himself in sensual pleasures, speaks falsehood, speaks maliciously, speaks harshly, gossips, he is covetous, has a mind of ill will, and holds wrong view. He will experience the result of that either here or now, or in his next rebirth, or in some subsequent existence.
So what this shows is that the karmic results of action do not manifest only upon rebirth. It can also bear fruit in this lifetime, here and now, subject to the right conditions. On the flip side, if we consistently avoid evil and do good, we accumulate wholesome karma that tends towards rebirth in the human or heavenly worlds. In the human rebirth, this person will enjoy pleasant results of action, as can be seen from the next slide.
Abstains from killing with rod and weapon laid aside. Gentle and kindly, he abides compassionate to all living beings. Result of action is long-lived. Not given to injuring beings with hand, stick, knife, etc. Healthy. Not angry and irritable when criticized, is not offended, angry, hostile, and resentful, does not display anger, hate, and bitterness. Beautiful. Does not envy, resent, and begrudge the gains, honor, respect, reverence, salutations, and veneration received by others. Influential. Gives food, drink, clothing, etc. to recluses and Brahmins. Wealthy. Is not obstinate and arrogant, honors, respects, reveres, and venerates one who should be honored, respected, revered, and venerated, highborn. Seeks knowledge in order to cultivate a wholesome, blameless life leading to welfare and happiness. Wise.
When you see the opposite of the results of unwholesome karma, all right, you know wholesomeness gives you good merits. This is just one example. In essence, I'll give you an example. If you perform an action that shortens a life, you get an equivalent karmic return. If your action lengthens a life, for example, saving someone's life or caring for the aged, you earn a karmic effect of a longer life. And you don't have to wait for rebirth. The karmic results of wholesome action can also mature in this lifetime, subject to the right conditions.
But since he abstains from killing living beings, from taking what is not given, from misconduct in sensual pleasures, from false speech, from malicious speech, from harsh speech, from gossip, he is not covetous, his mind is without ill will, and he holds right view. He will experience the result of that either here or now, or in his next rebirth, or in some subsequent existence.
What we have seen are just general guidelines. The karmic results of actions doesn't just depend on the action alone. It depends on many other variable factors which can modify the results in many, many ways. We will find out more, right? When we do Dhamma Bites on karma and rebirth. I think we did that the last session, in beginning of the year. Now, if a person achieves arahantship, can he escape the results of unwholesome karma? Or if not, can his attainment offset or dilute the effects of this bad karma? So let us look at Angulimala. After he achieved arahantship, he went on his alms round, right? And he was hurt when the villagers threw things at him, right? Then he went to the Buddha, and this is what the Buddha said to him. So, all right? Then with the blood running from his cut head, with his bowl broken, and with his outer robe torn, the venerable Angulimala went to the Blessed One.
The Blessed One saw him coming in the distance and told him, "Buried, Brahmin, buried, Brahmin. You are experiencing here and now the result of deeds because of which you might have been tortured in hell for many years, for many hundreds of years, for many thousands of years."
So, for Angulimala, the results of his actions that would bear fruit in that life were greatly diluted by his attainment. And all the karmic actions that would take effect in his subsequent lives were no longer functional, because as an arahant, he would no longer take rebirth. Our journey to Nibbana takes several lifetimes, and we can practice Dhamma only in the heavenly and the human realms. Much more effectively in the human realm, because in human realm we experience more dukkha. So because we know what dukkha is, we want to get out of dukkha. If we take rebirth in these two destinations, all right, good, all right. But if we take rebirth in the lower realms, what will happen is there is no way we can practice the Dhamma. And the Buddha said that those who live out their lives in the lower realms are usually reborn there, because the causes and conditions are such that it is not easy to practice. That is why moral discipline is very important. Without this foundation in morality, there is little chance of having future rebirths that are favorable for spiritual practice. Okay, let me go on to the last part, which is very important, which will be the practical applications. Sokhun.
Reflect constantly on past, present, and future action. Give ourselves moral reminders as often as we can. Do not rationalize any form of unskillful conduct. Keep company with admirable friends and wise ones. Do more good to dilute the effects of unskillful conduct.
Okay, most of you are familiar with these 5 points. They are not distinct areas of practice, but we separate them in this way to make it easier to understand. First, let's look at constant reflection. This system of ethics that the Buddha laid down for is derived from the law of cause and effect, the law of karma. So when we reflect on our actions and know that these have consequences, we will tend to be more restrained in our actions, and we will shape our intentions and actions in a way that does not harm and therefore cause suffering to self and to others. In this sutta, the Buddha taught Rahula how to reflect on past, present, and future actions. In whatever we do, it is important that we look at our own minds. Every time we get angry, what are we doing? We practice anger. Every time we're filled with envy and jealousy, we are practicing envy and jealousy. The more these mind states arise and we act on them, the stronger they become, and they settle as habits and eventually form part of our character. Likewise, for wholesome mental states, each and every action either brings us closer to Dhamana or brings us further away. Okay? Listen to the news every day. Listen many times. Not the news on a screen or in a newspaper, but the news of your body and mind. This is the most important news. Right? What is happening now? Observe how your actions and speech affect your mind. Observe how your mental states condition your actions and speech. This is how we investigate the law of karma in everyday life. Brothers and sisters, we may not always be able to stop doing something unskillful, but if we know it's unskillful, even as we're doing it, that is mindfulness, that is wisdom. And this awareness will hopefully give us a little sense of shame and inspire us to be more restrained in future. In essence, every time we reflect on our actions, learn from them, and recommit ourselves to skillful actions, we are strengthening our morality. And this reflection provides the foundation for the other 4 areas of practice. Next. Okay. In essence, all right, we need really to give ourselves moral reminders. Are you all familiar with this? Sisters often do not need to read this. I think you're all very familiar with the 5 precepts. All right, we recite this at the start of many Buddhist classes and ceremonies. It reminds us of our moral obligation to observe these precepts. Another useful moral reminder is this. I am the owner of my karma, the heir of my karma. I have karma as my origin, karma as my relative, karma as my resort. I will be the heir of whatever karma, good or bad, that I do. In fact, every time we pay wise attention to our thoughts, speech, and actions, and we reflect on them, we are bringing up the Buddhist teachings in the mind over and over again. We keep reflecting this way because we have to refer to them to see what is skillful and what is not. What else makes us remember moral precepts better? Okay. Now, these 4 parts of the brain play a significant role in processing and storing memories. But the interesting one is this one. You can read on your own. Sorry. So this part of the brain regulates emotions like fear and aggression and determines what memories to store and where to store them based on whether we have a strong or weak emotional response to the event. Now, strong emotional responses to an event produces brain chemicals that strengthens memories. Like, for example, we will always remember the 9/11 terrorist attack, right, on the Twin Towers. So something that makes a greater emotional impact on our mind is something we remember better. So what are the Buddha's teachings that can make a strong impact on the mind? If you have the time, go through these suttas. These are just examples of suttas where the Buddha described how hell is like and how difficult it is to get a good rebirth. Why did the Buddha share all these morbid facts with his disciples? It is to inspire the sense of ottappa. Ottappa is best described by Ajahn Jayasaro as a healthy fear of wrongdoing. Let me share with you what Ajahn Chah said, which is not as scary, but nevertheless gave me the sense of ottappa and made a great impact on my mind. Morality is very important, and you must try to look after it with every breath, every step of the way. So when you ready? Okay.
Yep. If you break your precepts, all kinds of unpleasant things can happen to you. Sometimes it might be stomach ache. Sometimes you might rave deliriously in your sleep, have nightmares. Sometimes it might be animals or spirits coming to harm you. So keep reflecting on your morality.
Moral reminders also come in the form of Dhamma talks, right? Dhamma books, and the best of all, the practice itself. You're practicing, paying wise attention to the mind at all times. Right? Next, do not rationalize any form of unskillful conduct. Okay. Now, linking morality to karma, more specifically, our intentions means that we have to develop a power of introspection or self-examination. That is number one, right? Because reflection requires honesty and an ability to look very clearly in our mind. And number two, reminding ourselves on what is skillful and what is unskillful. So we need to educate ourselves in these two aspects to the extent that we don't rationalize our greed, ill will, fear, and prejudices so automatically. Let us look at the example of alcohol consumption. Many people will say that drinking is necessary, especially when you have to entertain clients. Some say that it is good for health, helps us to unwind after a stressful day, and is a way to bond with friends and relatives during gatherings, weddings and New Year's Eve and parties, etc., etc. If you think the same way, think harder. Are you trying to justify your love of drinking? We already know the dangers of drinking. Social drinker or not, right? The moment you put the drink to your lips, you are already exposing yourself to all the dangers that come with it. For all those who started out drinking only a little and enjoy it, has your drinking increased or decreased over the years? How much do you like the buzz that comes with drinking that makes you forget all your problems? When you go to an event where there's alcohol, how much do you look forward to it? Where do you draw the line? We face a lot of peer pressure and influence at work, among friends, and in society as a whole. Now, alcohol consumption is just one of them. Use of recreational drugs is also acceptable in some societies. Strong emotions are encouraged. Desire, passion, and ambition, right? Because it is believed that they increase people's competitiveness, which makes them more productive. Killing is justified in wartime. Killing animals for food is acceptable. So is revenge. So is casual sex for many people. And some even believe that white lies are definitely okay. All these are deemed acceptable in the eyes of majority. So it must be okay, right? Brothers and sisters, unfortunately, under the law of karma, it is not. Sadly, we cannot escape the fruits of unwholesome karma, even if we have a very valid reason for committing these actions. For example, killing to protect country and family, stealing food for your children because you have no money, aborting a child because of the danger to the mother, and making the decision to put your pet to sleep because it is suffering a lot. But the karmic weight for these actions are, of course, much less than those that arise purely from unwholesome intentions. Sokhun?
The validity of natural laws governing human behavior does not depend on people's desires. If one is about to perform an action that results in falling into hell, it is better to acknowledge that this action is bad, but that one is still willing to suffer the consequences than to delude oneself into thinking that one is doing nothing wrong.
So if we have to drink to entertain clients, and you cannot find any reason to escape it, ask yourself this. Can you really not find any reason at all? Or are you just not trying very hard because you like drinking? Whatever the reason, do not rationalize. Acknowledge that you are not observing this fifth precept and you are prepared to suffer the consequences, whether it's for the sake of your career or you are just not ready to give up drinking. This approach to life is a much more honest one. So you're breaking the fifth precept, but you're observing the fourth one, isn't it? You're not lying to yourself. We make the choice because we're the owner of our own karma. So we have to weigh the pros and the cons. Next, very important, find the right friends. Hang around with the right people. Now, a 2014 study found that friends often bond by providing one another with moral support to resist a temptation. However, friends are also more likely to become partners in crime when it comes to enjoying sense indulgences. So it is no surprise that we start acting like the people we surround ourselves with, whether in virtue or in vice. Heard of this Chinese 谚语 or not? 近朱者赤，近墨者黑. Person to friends and companions, you look for friends who are generous, uses kind words. You look after the welfare of another, treating one like family, keeping one's words. Okay, you can read this on your own. And we also know, right, that we also have to keep very close to the wise ones. You can read this on your own. Okay. Next, so the people we keep company with can greatly affect how we practice in the other four areas, isn't it? Now, we must do more good to dilute the effects of unskillful conduct. What can we do? There is so much we can do. We can refer to the Sigalowata Sutta or any of the Buddha's teachings on morality. Here, we shall look at the Dhamma training as a whole, taking all these 5 points into consideration, with emphasis on mental training, because what we say and what we do is a result of our intentions. And we will look at the subtleties of our behavior. Doing good means cultivating wholesome states of mind, like metta and karuna, kindness and compassion, so we become more tolerant of other people's shortcomings. We are able to empathize better. We forgive more readily. We help more generously. And because of that, our ego shrinks. We are easily contented and grateful for what we have, and so easy to get peace and tranquility. As we have seen earlier, cultivation of wholesome states is more effective if we also exercise refrain from unwholesome actions. In this aspect, the simplest but not necessarily the easiest thing we can do is to meditate. When we meditate, we do not harm ourselves, right? We do not harm others. We are letting go of the 5 hindrances. This is as pure as you can get for body, speech, and mind. Studies have shown that meditation also increases people's responsiveness and motivation to relieve the suffering of others. We can also build up mind muscles to help us pay attention to our mind, both within and outside meditation. When we meditate regularly, we become more mindful and we are able to look more deeply into our own intentions. For example, we decide to intervene to right a wrong. For example, we see someone being bullied, right? Or an animal being tortured. Know to what extent our involvement is prompted by the desire to help, the desire for justice, and to what extent is there a desire to punish. Look in your mind, is anger or hatred present? And self-righteousness, indignation present? Or are these wholesome or unwholesome qualities of mind? Can you rely on them to make sound judgments? We may think we're acting with very wholesome intentions, yet when we look honestly and deeply into the mind, we may find other motivations as well. For example, when we make a big donation, is it purely generosity and compassion? If you were asked to make the same donation anonymously, will you still be motivated to give the same amount? Training in morality also means taking care with the effect our actions might have on others. Again, some of these actions may be subtle. For example, when you give advice to others, are you actually criticizing them? Are you being condescending? Is it advice that will be well received? Or is it unsolicited advice that may be given to show that you know more than them? Or number two, when you lecture your child, right? Do you say encouraging words or words that hurt because you're just pissed off? What is your body language when you talk? You notice when you meditate, you train that mental muscle of your mind. There's always a gap between the stimulus and the response, right? If not, continuously reactive, caught up in feelings, mind very restless and cannot let go. Whether we are working, meditating, or whatever, there's always an opening for us to change our obstructive habits. It takes mindfulness to see our habits, and it takes effort and patience to change those habits. But it is possible and vital to do. Every moment of the day gives us an opportunity, brothers and sisters, to train the mind. The progress is gradual. We will think twice about harming even insects. After a while, we were more willing to part with our possessions to help others. Then we become more contented, even with simple food, shorter holidays, less shopping, staying at home during COVID times. Not a problem. We feel happy for others, even if they are richer than us. More intelligent, better looking, or more successful doesn't bother us. We may even prefer meditation to watching television. All these happens gradually and naturally, and we will feel joyful. This joy and non-regret over our actions serve as a foundation for our spiritual journey. Faint is this fragrance of lavender and sandalwood, but fragrance of the virtuous soars sublime amongst the gods. The Buddha said here that the sila, morality, is the most beautiful adornment for a human being. It's the only fragrance that is all pervasive. But the skill is to remember it, to practice it, and to reflect on it. Let the beauty of virtue always refresh and bring joy to the mind. Okay, so this is the end of the Dhamma sharing. I shall stop share here.